Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. This is Riaz Mahmoud. Welcome to our channel 10 Minutes Fact Check. The name of our program is No Compromise on National Integrity, Security and Sovereignty on India and Bangladesh Relations. Today we have a very special guest with us, Professor Dr. Shahab Anam Khan. He is in the Faculty of Security and Strategic Studies of International Relations Department of Jahangirnagar University. Sir, Assalamu alaikum. How are you, sir?
I'm well.
Yeah.
Everything is fine.
So today we are here to talk about you and gather some insights, crucial insights from you regarding the relation between India and Bangladesh that is ongoing in the current phase of political issues. So at the very beginning, I want to ask you regarding your views of geopolitical issues, geopolitical relations between India and Bangladesh. How do you picturize this?
Thank you very much. I think that's a very interesting question because the global geopolitics is changing fast and we are not exception. We are part of the global system. I mean, if you look at Bangladesh's trade footprint across the world, we are very much connected to global economy. We're one of the top 50 economies in the world, and we are expected to become a much more stronger economy in the coming years. And I think in that context, Bangladesh's relationship with India has to be seen from geopolitical view too. The first, of course, is Bangladesh and India has a historic relationship. People to people contact, politics to politics contact were there. But the problem started with when August 5th happened in Delhi, in Bangladesh, but in Delhi. Delhi didn't know how to deal with it because they have historically been keeping all their eggs in one basket. And when it happened, there was a political paralysis in Delhi, how to respond to this particular event, the massive event. There was not a single empathy coming from Delhi. They still don't really show any kind of sympathy to the fallen lives during July and August. And that's quite painful. That means they're far from distant, far from reality, and that's a problem. The second issue is the new reality in Bangladesh dictates that Bangladesh is now much more stronger in terms of its foreign policy. I mean, if you look at Dr. Yunus going to China, is a clear message that Bangladesh's national interest is the foremost interest. Then we get to see foreign policy weakness in terms of BJP's international affairs. Its relationship with its neighboring countries is quite delicate. I mean, Bangladesh has a very strong relationship with all the countries. I mean, we had a little bit of temporary slowdown in our bilateral relationship with Pakistan, but in the last days of former Prime Minister, it was improving too, right? And then Pakistan is, of course, an important issue when it becomes to Muslim world too. But again, when it happened, the 5th August happened, the phenomenal dramatic rise of our people was a shock for the Indian politicians that they always thought that India has a lot of grip over the politics of Bangladesh or you know, intelligence and so on, which has been proved to be a myth. I mean, their weakness was pretty much well articulated over the past few months. And then if you look at the Trump government coming in, their tariff war and their relationship with China, which is Bangladesh's major trading partner, has also caused a lot of concern in Dhaka. While we thought that the relationship with India and US, many of Bangladeshis thought that India-US relationship will become kind of a bromance. I don't think so. That happened. Well, Trump has become much more transactional than ever. So it is very important for Bangladesh to see that Bangladesh's national interests are covered. In that case, whatever is needed, Bangladesh needs to do. Earlier, Bangladesh's foreign policy used to calculate too many things. I mean, Washington, Beijing, and Delhi. But Dr. Yunus, being Dr. Yunus, is a Nobel laureate, globally acceptable personality. I mean, I don't think his visit to China will be seen in a negative way, because his personality makes the difference. So I don't think that Bangladesh has any pressure in geopolitical terms, and Bangladesh has communicated with India many times that we should have a very good relationship, which was not understood by Delhi. And I hope Delhi will understand soon enough, which is needed for their own interests. And then, of course, Delhi's geopolitical vulnerabilities are very much there, Northeast India and so on. So I think we need to have a greater conversation with India by saying, look at the reality in Bangladesh, move on with the reality, and Bangladeshis are pretty much open to any kind of relationship. But the problem was not created by Bangladeshi people, and Bangladeshi people doesn't really like problems either.
So, thank you, sir. So, after Sheikh Hasina fled away to India, so India has been giving her a shelter. And how do you think this is going to affect, or is BJP in trouble regarding this issue?
Well, I mean, India has its own choice to make. I mean, it's a sovereign country. They have their own political interests. They have their own national interest, and they have always invested in Awami League for last 14 years. And in turn, former Prime Minister as well as former Prime Minister as well as Awami League provided every kind of support that India needed to strengthen its economy, to strengthen its regional, what you call that regional power, or perhaps BJP government to exercise extra leverage over the domestic politics. And Bangladesh has always been used for domestic politics. And even if you look at their CAA, NRC, all these, where the Muslim persecution was pretty much there, ethnic minority cases in Northeast India is pretty much visible. And just yesterday, the US Commission on Religious Rights have come up with a report where they have really identified the level of ethnic and religious minority persecution, which is worrisome, right? So Awami League, when they were in power, they really didn't criticize. They remained highly silent about it, and which helped BJP to really go against the Muslim population or ethnic population to a great extent. And everything is available in public domain. I mean, even the Indian media extensively wrote about it. So the point is, I doubt whether Bangladesh and India will have a very meaningful relationship when it comes to really portraying Bangladesh in a very negative way, while the US Commission on Religious Rights really came up with a document which is quite embarrassing. So my point is that I think what we need to see in the case of Bangladesh and India relationship is that the equal-handedness should come in.
In terms of our Bangladesh nationality, we can see a common picture that the most people of Bangladesh have anti-India sentiment. So, do you think that the Indians also have the same kind of mindset, anti-Bangladeshi mindset?
I think this is a very binary way of seeing, but definitely there has been a resentment against India being close collaborator of Awami League. And since August 5th, there is no statement or any kind of realization in the case of the BJP government to recognize what happened, and so many people died. And there has been an absolutely U-turn in Bangladesh's politics. And I think that is one key issue that India lacks in what we call empathy or perhaps understanding the reality. And they see it from a very religious prism. They see it from a terrorism prism or extremism, so on. But what is missing in this particular discussion is the recognition of the change. I mean, they're now recognized by saying that interim government is there, Dr. Yunus is there, but certainly we don't see that political synergy is very much there to recognize what has happened. So I think the question is then whether it is an anti-India sentiment. I don't think so. I think that there is a resentment, but that's a very strong resentment, which has been a cumulative effect of the Muslim issues in India, then all the pending issues, whether it is water or the border or so on. And I think that has become a major issue. That has created the force behind the anti-India understanding or resentment. So I think that is one issue. Second, many Bangladeshis see Awami League as a synonymous to BJP, or BJP as the greatest supporter of Awami League, and we get to see that quite often too. Even if you look at the Indian politicians, if you look at the Indian media, I mean, apparently looks like this Bangladesh doesn't have any other political party leadership, or in fact common sense brain brain across the Bangladeshi society. So apparently that also tells me that that kind of media bankruptcy or the policy bankruptcy, or rather if you say that political paralysis in India is perhaps a big problem for us. But on the other hand, do I see anti-Bangladeshi sentiment in India? I don't think that is absolutely correct, but the way Bangladesh has been projected since last August, I think there is a growing sentiment against Bangladeshis. And if you look that Bangladeshi tourists wanted to go to many places, and I heard that Siliguri and few other places, the hotels refused to give them rooms. And then of course you see the visa regime. Visa is still not functional for Bangladeshis except for the medical visa. And often you get to see the whole thing that Bangladeshis are demonized in the public sphere by the politicians. And I think that is creating a major polarization between Bangladeshis and Indians in terms of mass population. And that's very worrying, because today or tomorrow, I think there will be a change in Indian politics. I mean, there will be more liberal people who may come. I mean, if they come, then what we are going to see is basically a greater possibility of a greater relationship between Bangladesh and India. Now, what happens in between, that if this sort of polarization happens, in future we will have difficulties in trade, people-to-people contact, the confidence on social relationship, cultural relationship, and everything. So I don't think this is a great idea to demonize for Bangladeshis in the case of Indians, or in the case of Indians, Bangladeshis. So I think the problem lies is in the political myopia that I get to see in Delhi, and that is causing a terrible difficulties between these two countries.
So, after Sheikh Hasina has fled away, she has done a tremendous disaster in the system, in the political overall picture of the Bangladesh. So, after all this misgovernance, after all this corruption she has done, what do you expect from India to do with her?
You see, I mean, India should have really come forward when the government changed. I mean, the current interim government certainly has its weaknesses, without any doubt. I mean, it's not a very political government. It's a very much civil society driven government. So now what happens with the civil society sort of government, these are very temporary. I mean, they cannot really correspond to political needs of both the countries. So therefore, it is a common sense that Bangladesh needs to return to election as soon as possible. And hand over the power to an elected government. But the entire process between August 5th and the possible future elections, I mean, India could have lent its usual relationship with Bangladesh, which they maintained with the Awami League regime or previously with BNP and other regimes too. So I think this is one unique quandary in history, that BJP suddenly became blank from August 5th onward. And really, and as I mentioned, that political paralysis is very much there between these two countries. So I would strongly suggest that India should move forward with the current regime or the future regimes. It is good for them, good for us, because in Indian economy, Bangladesh's contribution is immense. I mean, we are the largest trading partner for them in South Asia, and I think that is quite understandable how we contribute. Our people are going there. What they're not, I mean, the public discourse often forget to tell that, you know, Bangladeshis are going there, buying things, paying for hospitals, studies and everything, tourism, which means our hard currencies are going to the Indian economy too, right? And Indians are working here. And if you look at the interim government's many statements, where you have seen that a number of Indian people are actually working on tourist visa, right? Yeah. And if you look at Bangladesh's access to Indian market, I mean, non-tariff barriers between these two countries are still in civilized world is very high. So what it means that Bangladesh could have really benefited from 1.4 billion population of India. And India's relevance in international politics is because of its 1.4 billion population, not anything else. So 1.4 billion population, whether it is Elon Musk or our Boshundara or Transcom or whatever companies that Beximco, whatever companies we have, they could have done a massive benefit from Indian market. Our RMG industries could have make a lot out of Indian market. So what happens that India's interest in global countries to come and invest, and when you look at Bangladesh's investment in India, there's a sharp mismatch. But whereas you can see that Bangladesh's contribution to American economy, European economy, through RMG, through other projects, is pretty high. And the relationship between Bangladesh and China, I think, I mean, maybe my friends in India can really learn from China too, because on the 5th of August, everything happened. 6th, 7th of August, you get to see that Chinese are doing business as usual. Over the past 7 months of interim government, what you have seen that the Chinese became the largest investor in Bangladesh, despite changes in the government, right? Why did they do that? They did it because economy should not be securitized. Economy should not be politicized. And that's the massive problem that we have in South Asia, that we make our market, our economy politicized and securitized, and the result is, you know, nobody cooperates with each other. So this is another problem. And the last issue that I think when this gap is being politicized, that Bangladeshis and Indians, I think the onus lies with the politicians too, whether it is in India or Bangladesh. They really have to work hard to make sure that you may have the political differences, but that should not affect the social contact between Bangladesh and India. And that's where I think the major affliction has been done.
So in recent times, India has been complaining repeatedly regarding the violence that has been creating in Bangladesh on the minorities. India has been complaining on this issue several times. So what do you think? Is Bangladesh able to tackle this violence complaint against Bangladesh? What do you think?
Well, I mean, India is a democracy. I mean, but the funny part is India's reputation, media's reputation is continually degrading if you see the global media index reports, right? it continues to go down. So what does it mean? It means that there's something seriously problem with Indian media when it comes to its relationship or foreign relationship of India. I mean, if you look at their reportings when it comes to United States, it's a huge sort of reporting. But if you look at, unfortunately, quite funnily though, when Mr. Elon Musk met Indian Prime Minister, it was the nannies and the babies were sitting in the meeting, right? Which is quite interesting, isn't it? So my point was, point I'm saying that you really need to have an authenticity of your news, or otherwise it will be essentially be considered as media bankruptcy. And that's exactly what we're saying, that high pitch, high decibel shouting, and a lot of people gathering, and everyone is shouting in Indian talk shows. It's quite amusing. To me, it's an entertainment too. I mean, it's like a lot of clowns in a circus. So what my point over here is that Indian media needs to really behave. Even if you look at the Indian journalists in White House, asking Mr. Trump or other spokesperson about Bangladesh, you can see the framings. It's just so obvious that these are so obvious that it was a fed and planted questions. I mean, you just have to use your common sense. You really don't need to be highly educated to understand that. So what we get to see is that these are deliberately done. And now that you go to Washington, which is a major political power, which is which is one of the two superpowers, you really need to create some sort of impact on Washington and Donald Trump administration by quoting some mediocre questions or quite funny questions that George Soros' son came to Bangladesh and, to antagonize Mr. Trump and so on. So you get to see these things quite often. And that's very much, that tells you the quality of Indian media. But again, if you look at Indian media in 70s, 80s, 90s, these were the world-class media. Telegraph, Hindustan Times, Times of India, these were like most respectable newspaper. And look at this Republic TV, or even, I used to watch NDTV quite a lot, and then suddenly it has gone really down. So I think these are the problems with Indian media right now. They have commercialized themselves highly. And the problem is, this is what happened during Awami League time. Many of the media eventually turned into a propaganda machine. And now that you get to see our media is much more freedom, enjoying much more freedom, they're able to speak as much as they want. But certainly there is self-censorship in Bangladesh. I won't deny that. And there is a lot of uneasiness among journalists that, well, suddenly you get to see that they will be defamed in social media. And we have learned these things quite well from our neighboring countries. So the point is, if you have a little bit of sensibility alive, look at Al Jazeera's debunking of Bangladesh's minority issue. Look at the European disinformation labs. They have really said, even if you look at BBC has said, no, while there is a concern about the rise of extremism in Bangladesh, nobody denies in Bangladesh, but not in a way that it has become an established fact as yet. Here, India can always come and work with Bangladesh closely, that how we can control, curb extremism in the future. And then there are the questions about Bangladesh's ethnic issues sometimes. Yes, we do get to hear that, and nobody denies that, but not to an extent that as if we have created another Gujarat in Bangladesh or we have created another Northeast India in Bangladesh. I don't think even the most imbecile in global politics would believe that.
Right. So in all the circumstances of the discussion we just had, do you think that the current government, the interim government, has anything to do, you want to advise something to the government of interim government of Bangladesh regarding the regarding how to stop or how to tackle this propaganda that has been spreading? What measures should the government take?
I think, frankly speaking, the initiative should come from India, because a lot of disinformation and misinformation originates from our neighboring country. And India has technology. India is a global leader in these things. And I think they should come up and lend their hands with Bangladesh government to stop this disinformation. Now, the question is whether they will do that. Because if disinformation becomes a propaganda machine, then it's a problem, right? So I think that is something, and I think there should be an open invitation from the Bangladesh government for India to really come and work with us on extremism issues, which I have repeatedly said in future it can become a problem if it is unchecked. And given the weaknesses of the interim government and its temporary timing, I think it is very important that India can always be helpful, rather than seeing that, okay, this government go and pass, and then the elected government comes. Well, elected government will also need the same help. Yeah. So why are you wasting time in between, right? I mean, so it means that the momentary spasm that you get to see in Indian approach towards Bangladesh needs to be revised, and Bangladesh should provide any kind of help needed if India needs to fix its foreign policy. And I'm quite sure we have very good diplomats, we have very good military officers who can help in securing the borders, which is a major concern for India. We have very good politicians to an extent who can help in bridging the gaps. The young generation who has led this entire movement, there is a need for engaging with them. And then when you talk about the criminal activities, one of the arguments is always security when it comes to Indian visa. Well, many of the convicted, or perhaps many of the criminals, as per Bangladesh's law, and one should respect Bangladesh's law and Bangladesh's sovereign exercise of its own law. So therefore, many of them are actually, as we see in the media, are in India, right? So we get to see our criminals are already there. So what is the problem if you open? General people, they don't really get into criminal activities. Our people are very, very, Bangladeshis are very, very generous people. They're extremely well behaved people, and you get to see that Bangladeshis don't get into any kind of trouble. They when they go to India, right? And I think Bangladesh's reputation globally as a very peaceful country is there. We are the only country in South Asia, if you look at, only country in South Asia that has no conflict baggage. That doesn't go in unnecessary conflict with anyone, while our economy technically is far stronger than many of our neighboring countries, right? So what it means that we prefer economy, not going back in history. We don't want to dig in that what Aurangzeb did or what Shah Jahan did. We want to move forward. Politics should be about moving forward. Yes, we have got a little problem, or perhaps a lot of debate about 1971, and some people are trying to undermine 1971 and so on. We get to see that. Well, these are the problems that is not going to change Bangladesh's national security or anything. But these are the issues that we have to tackle in future. But look at in my neighboring countries, particularly India is a phenomenal country in terms of science, medicine, entertainment, music, movies, and everything, right? We all respect those things. But the problem is when politics is, rather than going in front like Indian technology industries or Indian media industries, it's going back. You get to see that they're very busy with Aurangzeb right now. Come on. It's a 400 years old issue, and how is this going to really? So that tells me. And of course, we also have to understand Bangladesh's interim government is headed by a Nobel laureate, right? That makes a difference, right? And This is not somebody who's just making tea or making coffee or anything. So have respect for Dr. Yunus. Allow Dr. Yunus to be a part of Indian development too, because we have contributed to Indian development. India's trade with China is more than $100 billion, right? With a trade deficit in favor of China, right? And when we have a deeper relationship with China, that money comes to Bangladesh. I mean, that relationship, and that helps us to circulate the money. We do trade in a cheaper way. We help in Indian economy. Our help in Indian economy, look at how much money do we spend in India, right? So I think we need to come out of those myopic understanding of politics. India needs to understand it's just a regional country. It is a nuclear power, so is Pakistan. And nowadays we are hearing that Myanmar is trying to get some nuclear technologies, peaceful though, and we're not going to have a very fantastic time ahead. So even if we have to stabilize Myanmar, we have to work together, India and Bangladesh. If we want to have Northeast India stabilized, we have to work together. I mean, if we have to really address China's security concerns, we have to work together too. So I don't see in environment, Bay of Bengal, technology, common people, right? We have to work together. The more we do, rather than just like, you come here and take everything and then we go there and then you get a big wish list. I think we should come out of that. And that's why the students are saying we need an equal-handed relationship.
So through this channel of ours, 10 minutes fact check, do you want to express some of your call to the most people of Bangladesh?
No, I think we should not see everything from a very, emotional point of view. We have to be pragmatic sometimes. We have to be practical too. And I think Bangladeshis are extremely generous. We have given shelter to 1.3 million population of Myanmar. That's us, right? And we should be able to embrace others' concerns too. And if the Indians can get, here the Indian economy can get some benefit, or political parties can get some mileage from our generosity, let it happen. So I think we should remain as generous we were, and we don't see majority minority problem. We do see there are problems. Of course, there are always some flings coming out from here and there. You get to see in every country. You get to see in Europe far rights coming back. You get to see even in Israel, look at what's happening. If you see in the US, you get to see a lot of far right supremacists coming out. That doesn't mean that the entire country is like that, right? So my suggestion has always been that we should remain generous. We should continue to focus on our economic development. We should not be very worried about all these media propaganda, with an understanding that they need it for their own domestic purpose. And of course, to go to Washington and places, because they can't go to Beijing and say these things. Beijing has really put a limit to that, so that's not going to work. And I would say that Bangladesh should be wholeheartedly help India in making its security stronger in Northeast India. There's no harm in that, but not at the expense of Bangladesh's national security or national interest. If we want to construct an airbase in Lalmonirhat, we should do that. If we think that our water should be managed by other countries, let them do that. And everything has to be calculated according to Bangladesh's national interest. And I think that's what this interim government is trying to do. And that's what I believe that the future governments will try to do.
Thank you so very much for your time, sir. And we are honored to be with you. So, dear viewers, we had a wonderful time with our honorable guest. And we hope you really enjoyed it. The insights we have achieved from this session, I hope you have liked it. Thank you very much. Stay tuned with the 10-minute fact.